Being that it's 9 o'clock, we'll open the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
My computer will not hook up.
All right. We have the agenda before us here. Everybody's had a chance to review that. I have one question on action item number 2. Discuss possible future changes to the quarter rule. What, is that a discussion item or a action?
Well, we want to take action on it to get started on it.
So it's an action item. Okay. Any other questions? If not, if there's a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Approval of the previous board minutes, January 28th. Everybody's had a chance to look at those. Is there any additions or corrections? If not, is there a motion to approve?
So move.
Second.
No further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Public comment. Now's the time for anybody in the public who would like to make a comment. They can come forward. We also have a public comment at the end of the meeting too, so. State your name and address, where you're from.
George Johnston, La Crescent Township, La Crescent, Minnesota. I guess the main question is this here was adopted about a year and a half ago, and I'd like to know why are we, and I also understand that it took a lot of time and effort to really get this across so it'd be fair, and which I do think it's fair, and why now, if somebody could answer that question, why are we trying to change this from 40 to 20? Is there anybody that, you're trying to change this building permit thing from 40 acres to build on to 20, to two for 40, if that's the way you want to put it?
This usually isn't a back and forth on the public comment.
Oh, it
so-
isn't?
But we'll have that discussion on the action item, yes.
Well, anyways, then the other thing is, then I'll just add to it. If
Okay.
you go to work and change this, all you're gonna wind up is just like the last time. Right now, there's just so much money out there, which wasn't quite a few years ago. You didn't have people out there, developers and real estate speculators out there with millions of dollars that can just buy up a small farm like they did the last time and then split off a piece here and split off a piece there and split it up into little pieces and now get it down to 20 acres. It's just gonna make it that much more lucrative for them, and it'll just make it worse on using up all the ag land, no matter how they do it, with all the laws and stuff that they twist around. I'm not a lawyer, but I can plainly see, and then in here it says that you lost 15% of the agricultural land in 17 years. And especially in La Crescent Township, you lose another 15% there, and there's gonna be farmers out there I know will go broke. They'll go belly up because they cannot afford to run them farms without the land that they got now. And there's no other place for these builders to go is out there. So I don't know, to me, everything seemed to be fine unless somebody's got a personal reason or other people got a personal reason why they want to lower this down.
Okay.
I just don't understand it. If, like I said, if I could come to a meeting where you had a back and forth, maybe somebody could explain that. It'd be very nice,
Okay,
because right now I'm just going by what I know and not anything else.
all right.
But Yeah, these farmers will go broke because they're gonna lose that property. And I know a lot of them that got just about that much property and you get it down to 20 acres and they're gonna develop it. I know dang well they are. I'm quite familiar with the area, so.
Yep.
And all you do as far as, and it probably doesn't matter, but all you do as far as La Crescent and La Crescent Township there, you're not doing that for anything for La Crescent. All you're doing is making a bigger bedroom town for the city of La Crosse. Because La Crescent has no business. So that's what my thoughts on that.
Okay,
Thank you much.
thank you. Anybody else?
Shane Schumacher, Mount Prairie, addressed the same issue that George just did. Just some points to consider. I think should look at this from a different point of view, and I'll preface my comments by saying I only know what I've heard. I haven't dug into specifics, so I'm talking in a more general sense. Let's say somebody had a large livestock operation. They were at the limit of what they could have on their given acreage. If that producer was on a governing body, would it be fair to the rest of the county if he was trying to change county policy to further his own business? And then we talk about if you would, possibly say double the population of the county by dividing everything in half, 2 houses per 40. Would you automatically tell everybody with livestock or a large grain operation that they could double their facilities without many questions asked also? And if you're gonna put twice as many houses out there, would we reduce setbacks so livestock could be within half the distance of a housing development also? I say this to look at it in the opposite direction of, the farmer. And I've also heard it said that this is proposed as we need to raise the tax base in the county. Do we need more money? I would say that if there's such a shortage in the budget, would that possibly be more due to mismanagement of funds, potentially? I don't think we have mismanagement of funds in this county. One metric most people use to look at finances, just from the outside looking in, is roads and bridges. I spend a lot of time on the road, Houston, Fillmore, Winona County, Allamakee, Howard, Winneshiek County. I think we have some of the nicest county roads in the tri-state area, which I think the board has done a great job, and I'd like to commend you all and the highway department for such. And if our money is being managed properly, in my opinion, if you add additional money to the pot, that could just lead to waste. Extra money leads to extra spending, because if you got it, it's gonna get spent. And my final point to consider is, if this is to happen now, we're at 40 acres, 1 house on 40 acres now. If we go to 2 per 40, 1 per 20, how many years down the road before 20 acres becomes 10 acres? 10 acres becomes 5, 5 becomes 2.5, and we end up with 30, 40 years down the road, we end up with a county that's nothing but one big subdivision for the residents of Rochester and La Crosse, or Winona. And at what point does it stop? Because once you go to a certain point, there's no coming back. And then everybody says, this used to be a nice farming community. What happened? Well, nobody sat here and said we should just leave it the way it is now, because we're in a good spot. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anybody else? All right, we'll move on. We don't have a consent agenda. We don't have any appointments.
Who's gonna sound the line?
What's that?
I just saying, keep moving on, so we,
Okay. So we'll go right into action items. Action item number 1, consider approving text amendment to the zoning ordinance to reflect uses recently adopted in the cannabis business ordinance. Amelia.
Good morning.
Morning.
Morning. So the planning commission met a couple weeks ago to review the text amendment changes to the zoning ordinance. Or after the adoption of the cannabis business ordinance. There was not a lot of discussion at that point in time. Most of the discussion, I guess, centered on what the cannabis business ordinance actually covered. But these rules and changes were just adding both definitions and then also the uses and changing or modifying the general formatting within the zoning ordinance districts. And that was all the highlighted, any additional text was the highlighted stuff within the board packet. There were a few findings, and ultimately, the Planning Commission recommended approval of both the findings and those proposed amendments. I don't know if you have anything to add, Eric?
Yeah, I was at the planning commission meeting too, and it was a healthy discussion and debate on a few points, but overall, everybody was in agreement with it and wanted to move forward to recommend for approval. It was a long, drawn-out process to come up with this. Given the fact that we don't know exactly where the state is on their end of it, so a lot of confusion. But the ordinances that we've got in writing here is something that's been copied from other counties and suggestions from AMC, Association of Minnesota Counties, so it's a start. We know that it's gonna be, there's definitely probably gonna be need some changes to it if, you know, the state changes what they wanna do or recommend, or, you know, requirements or whatever, so.
Has the county attorney's office looked it over and made the changes that were brought up in December?
Yes, they were involved with the cannabis business ordinance adoption. I will say this language was not anything that I ran by them, because it was
The previous stuff was,
basic. Yep.
thank you.
Sam was involved, yep,
Come out of his office.
yep.
Yeah.
We're new. Gotta ask these
Fine.
questions.
Yeah, there's been a lot of discussion, I think, from the planning commission on this in the last, well, year since it came about. So, you know, we have to start somewhere, is what I would say. If we can get this out there. We also have counties that are surrounding us that are already pushing forward on a lot of their initiatives. So I think it's time for us to move.
So do we have a motion to approve the text amendment to the zoning ordinance?
I'll make a motion to approve it.
Okay,
Second.
any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Amelia, you might want to stay here for this one. Number 2, discuss possible future changes and action on the quarter rule. Commissioner Myrie, you wanted to bring this on the agenda today?
Yep. We have, getting an awful lot of calls for people that wanna have their children move back to their farms, help take care of them, join in on helping out on the farm. And, I can't see anything wrong with that. I mean, we're all gonna get old. And if you've got a daughter that wants, or a son that wants to come back and move on to your farm and build a house to take care of you, I can't see nothing wrong with that. And it's gonna bring in more tax money, so maybe we won't have to pay as much taxes. Cause if everybody else is, there's more tax money coming in, we gotta pay less. And so I see nothing wrong with letting these people build these houses on these homesteads. I mean, in the first place is, who's gonna sell you the land? I mean, if your father don't own the land, you ain't gonna build a house in Houston County. Because you're not gonna sell, nobody's gonna sell their prime farmland to some stranger, and he turns out to be an idiot, and then they're fighting all their lives. That ain't gonna happen.
Well,
How else are they gonna be able to come back and move into Houston County? Don't we want nobody to come back to Houston County?
Well, I think we want people to come back to Houston County and stay in Houston County. We've had, how many, 23 new dwelling permits issued last year?
I guess I don't recall totals, but there was a record number after Marty left that I handled in the later part of the year.
Right, and, you know, granted, some of those, a couple of those were replacement dwellings, but, you know, we've had discussions on this previously, and we're trying to find out exactly how many open quarters that are buildable, you know, and, because I don't feel we're running out of property to build on, given the fact that we've had a record number of dwellings permitted. And to your point about people wanting to come back on the farm and build, they can do that. There is an allowance for doing that. You could put in a movable home for the son or daughter to come back, live there, and help out on the farm.
Would your son or daughter move into a mobile home?
Given what it costs to build a house, it's probably their first starter, yeah.
If it's your son or daughter, shouldn't it be a conflict of interest if you're on the board?
I don't have a son or a daughter. I got a son and a daughter, but none of them, they've all got their homes.
I just want to refrain from, the debate is up here, so,
No.
Discussion.
discussion, right? So,
So I have a few points. You know, first of all, I think it's good to have discussion. Definitely prior to jumping into some knee-jerk reaction that we can't change later or very difficult to change. I think we need public input from both sides because since I was on the planning commission, lived in the area for 28 years, I mean, I've heard a lot of discussion with this as well from both sides, and their opinions on it. The comp plan that we have doesn't indicate a need for the change on an action plan right now. I think, Mr. Johnson was mentioning that, we have that in place, and, you know, if we start changing some things, it might be, very difficult to go back on that. I think we need to review a plan for what would change and how, more of a language for the ordinance. I've done some research, and I know that there's a lot of counties that put in pretty specific language. So our Environmental Services Office doesn't have to guess and put some things in that aren't really according to ordinance. Land Use Committee is looking into how many quarter areas may be involved or under consideration. I think that's a good place to at least start and see what we possibly have. And also just the capacity as far as quickly turning this around is an issue. We have new staff that have a lot of ongoing requests and inspections, and honestly, we could be liable if issues occur. So we have to step by step line this up very carefully, in my opinion.
I agree with your assessment on the land use plan, which we just did a year and a half ago. And our surveys for that, a majority of people wanted to keep the quarter rule as is. And the main point is to, you know, one of the policy goals is to protect and preserve the ag community. We're in the agriculture district, so we try to encourage, locate rural housing development away from recognized commercial agriculture areas. In areas with marginal agriculture soil and areas adjacent to existing cities where urban services can be easily extended. That's been our goal or plan all along, is to grow from within the cities and out. But protect the ag district, because people, you know, farmers are doing their work out there. You're gonna double the density. It's just gonna make their jobs more difficult. You know, and the number one policy is to protect and preserve prime ag land in the county by limiting development. That's in our comprehensive land use plan. So, being that this is just enacted a year and a half ago, And the issue never came up during our time doing this comp plan study. We sent out surveys, we had discussions with townships. There was no, that I recall, any townships wanting to push us to increase their density as far as building and housing. I was on the township for 22 years. I saw with the recent development over those 22 years, people building in these spots where, we had minimum maintenance roads. All of a sudden, they're building on that road, it's no longer minimum maintenance. You had to clearing the brush, do the ditching, fix the roads up, and there you go. It'll create more demands for services. Because people want their road plowed by 5:30 in the morning. A lot of these townships don't have a full-time road maintenance crew. They hire it out. They get people to do it at a part-time basis. So, those are all the factors that we need to consider if we're gonna change something. And those are the things that we considered when we did the comp plan. And I guess I don't understand why now all of a sudden we need to start looking at this to change it. So, leave it up to you guys. Any more comments or?
I was just reading the comp plan and looking at housing and economic development. And in here, you guys did put, and I just highlighted some of the stuff. And I kind of agree with what you have to say, and I certainly have talked to our counterparts over here. I think research needs to be done. I would like to talk to more of the constituents in my district. I have talked to 21 of them already, and I would like to talk to more. Because at the end of the day, we do represent the people that voted for us. And I want to point this out because I think it's important, is in this, and it's a section of work, you can read this. The county may want to investigate new options for housing in the future, with such options allowing residents to age in place, which I think is very important. Knowing the costs of having a family member in a nursing home or a facility. To age in place and or allow multiple generations to develop next to each other. So it's something that I think when this book was put together, that it was put together with the idea that it's kind of a living document, and there are gonna be changes as we go down the road. If you own land and you don't wanna build on your land, or don't sell your land to somebody, because I think I wouldn't sell my land to somebody, then you have that right. But I also think you own the land and it's yours. And who am I to tell you what you can do with your land? Because I don't think big government should tell you what you can and can't do with your property. So that's what I have to say, so. Agree, whoever said I did hear that. Yeah, they do, and I think it's wrong.
Thank you.
So I live in a little acreage. I don't need anybody telling me what I can do with my property.
Well, just a small thing to add, I guess, within 2 years, I live 5 miles out of the Crescent. There's been 2 homes built. Our 150 acres that joins 2 homes has went up $500,000. Our cattle production has shrunk. We're doing the best we can, but how are we gonna keep up to that? And would I live in a mobile home? Any day. Because life isn't about what you live in.
Oh, and that's another thing we need to consider is, there's quite a few feedlots in the ag district. And if we're gonna increase the density, eventually, these are gonna be encroaching on the feedlots. And they already are. We've granted variance for dwellings too close to a feedlot. We're gonna increase the density, double the density. There's gonna be more variances granted, assuming that happens. We're gonna be squeezing these guys out of business, so.
Eric, is this something we could bring up at our work group?
That'd be a good, yeah, we've done that before, but yeah, we could do that. Bob, you got something you wanna add?
Sure. So on the board here, we all get calls from people. A lot of times it's, they go up to the zoning office or the assessor's office or the recorder's office. In this matter here, it's the zoning office. And there's been changes in the zoning office in the last 5 years, quite significant changes. So they work on things, they get different answers from different people. Sometimes they leave frustrated and are told, call your commissioner. So they do. And so then we talk back and forth with the people and try and work something out. Where I'm getting at is this: I've received numerous calls on this quarter, for and against. And some of them are, you can definitely see where they're coming from, and it's something that is an ordinance, but it is also a living document, as he said. Ordinances need to be reviewed. Otherwise, you have a dictatorship of your laws. And there's a process for that, and that's what we need to follow and look at, is that process. We can't just come in and change an ordinance like there was a rumor flying around on in one meeting. I believe it's right in the comp plan there, how to change an ordinance if necessary. You have public hearings, you have public input, things like that. Unfortunately, Houston County is a change county. I've lived in Houston County my whole life. I love my place I live out in the country. I don't know where these two new houses came from, John. I look at the one out in my backyard that they're still working on. Where's,
Travis Zinke and Sex
okay,
Hours house.
yep, Travis is the other one, thank
That
you.
increased the value,
Yep, it sure did.
running us out.
But, and it's change that's out there that I don't know if we're gonna be able to stop it or not, but it is good to have this
What
public
are we gonna
input.
do when we're gone? Build a Walmart and take.
I'm not here to debate with you, John. I'm making a statement, so
I
thank you.
understand that, but
But what I'm getting at is I think we have a process to look at. Let's look at the process. If it's a change that needs to be made, we look at it. That's how we do due diligence. That's what
Sounds
I have
like
to say.
land use is taking some of those steps to, start looking at it from the standpoint of what do we have? And then also we need to go into getting some further input, actually getting that down, rather than the phone calls and
No, that's right. I mean,
informal.
that's something that we've asked our surveyor to look into, how many open quarters are available to be built on. He's been in the process of looking at that. I haven't seen that yet, but it'd be nice to know. I mean, that'd be a starting point to see if there is a need or not. To get to your point, Bob, about we're getting calls for people. And Amelia, this is just what I would do if I was you in your position. I would tell people, this is the ordinance as it is. And this has been this way for quite a while. And this is what we have to work off of, instead of, saying, well, there's been talk of changing it. There's been, go talk to your commissioners about changing it. I think we need to just not give people false hope that it might change, because people might be making plans that it's gonna change, but we don't know that. I would just encourage to say, this is the rule as it is today, and this is what we have to follow.
Correct. I guess just to defend why we're doing that is that sometimes people ask political questions and I'm not the politician.
I know.
And if they're your constituents, I guess they should let you guys know how they feel.
And that's fine, that's fine, they can call us all day long, I mean, I get those calls too, and that part of it's fine, I'm just saying,
But I agree with you, yes.
yeah.
Spend a lot of time cherry picking solar policies from other counties, multiple different things we look at, let's not reinvent the wheel.
Right.
I think in southeast Minnesota here, we should look at some of the counties around us, whether it be Wisconsin, Iowa, Minnesota, I don't really care. Look at what their policies are, look at their practices, and look if they have, I can tell you Martin County does not have a quarter. I had a conversation for about an hour about that last night, but who cares? It's Martin County. It's not Houston County. That being said, I'd like to know around us, and if somebody did change it, what was the impact on the farmland, on the road conditions, so on and so forth. Because I think that's important. So,
I guess just to give my 2 cents is I don't disagree with you guys that some of these items need to be looked at. But there is just a process to do that. And since this action item wasn't, I guess, initiated by our office, I don't know what what the intent of it necessarily was. But you've already touched on that, Bob, and that there is a procedure for going through this, which is planning commission, public hearing, and notices. And that has not been met for this particular meeting. And so, and I also want to state too, like, it's easy to change language, but it's the research on what we want to do and the details on how we're going to make that decision that take time, and I don't want those to be made in a rush decision at any point.
No, I agree with that. Yep.
And then two, so as they stated, we did discuss this during our comp plan update, and so I did go back and pull the survey results on that question for you guys and
For the comp plan?
for the comp plan, and so on page 5, they did summarize it there to show that overall it was more of a, I think the question was asked on Houston County zoning ordinance limits 1 dwelling per quarter section and a minimum lot size of 1 acre in the ag district. Should Houston County modify its ordinance to allow additional dwellings on these ag properties? And it came back mostly neutral, but kind of on the strongly disagree side. And so at that point, I guess for you guys that are newer, we took the stance of there wasn't overwhelming support to change that. So status quo at this point is probably sufficient.
Amelia, does that show how many people actually completed the survey?
Yeah, so if you go, so the initial part is the question and the numerical response. The second and third and fourth pages are the comments that people provided if they wanted to. I believe at the end, there is a number of those who, it'd be the total who took the survey and then those who answered it and those who chose to skip
82
it.
and 118.
So out of that, it's 200 people.
Yeah. And I realized,
So only 200 people took the survey for the whole county?
yes,
And we based that, the prior board based that off of
Well,
200 people?
this is what we
That's
average.
okay, what I'm getting at here, Eric, is that was based off of 200 people. We got a third of that in the room here today. Maybe it's time to listen to the people again. That's what we're here for. And there's a process for doing that instead of a knee-jerk reaction or getting upset or spreading lies, rumors, or half-truths.
Through
So let's do it and let's do it right.
through a public hearing process.
Correct.
Where the
Through
public can
the
have,
process that myself and Cindy talked about, she's on that board. I was on the zoning board, for La Crescent Township. I was on that township board for 13 years as well. So we had our own zoning at that time. And we are here to listen to the people. Maybe it's time to listen to them again and put this to rest then.
and I think that because of how long this rule has been in place and the number of people that have been impacted by it, it is definitely one of those that we want to have multiple public hearings on.
Correct. Exactly. Thank you. Thank you for doing that.
I think it's worth pointing out too that people get confused on it's called the 1 per 40 rule. Well, it's actually 1 per quarter. And you don't need to own 40 acres to build. You just need an open quarter on your plot of land to build on, and you get a conditional use permit for that dwelling. If you owned 40 acres to build, you could build it anywhere. You could build it on prime farmland or anywhere, because you own the whole 40.
As long as you meet the slope and the hillside. and
Right.
it
Yeah,
doesn't
there's
mean you're
other-
gonna
Right,
plow
there's
houses.
other conditions of slope and all that, right, but, you don't necessarily have to own 40 acres to build. And then when you explain that to people, then they, oh, okay, well, that makes sense, now I understand, so.
And I do think we need to be clearly communicating on that. It's, what are they responding to? Because then I think you get more input as well. Because otherwise, if someone doesn't understand what that change would be, they don't, they don't understand what to, how to respond. So maybe we can try that again. I like there is a lengthy list of comments, at least on here. There's 3 pages of comments. So that's a good place to start too.
You make them bigger so I can see them.
Yeah. If you stop by later, I can see what I can do.
I appreciate that.
Okay, well, we just had a discussion. Is there gonna be action or?
Well, I never got to say a word yet here. Can I say
Go ahead,
something?
yeah, go ahead.
I'd like to say something anyhow. I guess, I'm in favor of the 2 per 40. I think it's great that people want to come back to Houston County. And we're gonna get more tax revenue. We're gonna have more jobs for people. And, we need to get more people in Houston County, or what are we gonna do 20 years from now when we're all not here? Then who's gonna be here? I mean, there's several people out here that got daughters and sons that wanna move back to their farms, and they gotta go through hell to get it done. So I think we should have the 2 per 40. And like you say, we gotta go through this hearings. We're gonna work it out the way we should. And get it done somehow so people can build, their children can come back to Houston County. Because we're supposed to be trying to get people to come to Houston County. Well, right now, it looks like we're driving them away.
How many permits did we hand
I,
out?
yeah, there was 20-some permits that have been issued the last year.
That's awesome. That's
So your comment about driving it away, that don't want people to come into the county, that's not accurate.
Well, if you come here and wanna buy land, how are you gonna do that? Who's gonna sell your land?
Everybody has to buy a chunk of property to build on.
Yeah,
Yep, and it's happening. I mean, that's why woods and open ground has gone up, the values. We just had a discussion with the assessor the other day where woods have gone up to $5,200 an acre now because of the demand for woods. And if we increase the density to 2 per quarter, that's just gonna drive the values up more. People, realtors and developers are gonna look at that and say, hey, I'll give you $20,000 an acre for that 20 acres.
Our
you know.
taxes have went up 54%, 30% in the last 2 years. Tell me when that's ever happened.
Your assessed value probably,
Yes,
yeah, not your taxes.
right. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Can't keep up to that.
88% of tax one, I'm selling.
Well, I mean, this is things we have to consider if we're doing this, what's gonna be the outcome of doing this? What's gonna be the ramifications of changing this?
We also have a township that has a moratorium in place now, and kind of because of conflicts between those non-farm dwellings and a farm, or farmers, I guess. And so how is increasing the number of people in the ag district then gonna help those, or help that situation?
That's a good point. I was gonna, yep,
Wilmington.
Yep, and I was gonna bring that up as well. I mean, we already have a Wilmington Township going through a moratorium on feedlots and new dwellings because of, people that live out there are getting upset with, ways of farming, so it's just gonna, expand and be more of those if we increase the density in the ag district. I'm all for building outside of the city. And if people wanna come and put in a trailer home or a movable home next to their parents' house, that is allowed in the zoning ordinance to help out on the farm. But if you allow people to build permanent dwellings right next to mom and dad's house, what happens in 5 years from there now if there's a death in the family or there's a divorce or whatever? I know we can't, do anything about those situations, but that's gonna create a problem for them. And when you point that out to people, they think, yeah, I get what you're saying, but that'll never happen. But it might.
And I think that's a valid point, because we do have sites where, at one point, I think second farm dwellings were allowed to be permanent. And I'm sure you guys all know sites where there are 2 houses right on top of each other, but now the second house has been parceled off on a tiny little acreage, and they're living right on top of somebody that is not family at all. So that's what the ordinance is also in place to consider, is the future landowners.
Right, is try to prevent some of those issues. I mean, I've talked to people in Winona County that, you know, I tell them what the situation that we have, that, you know, they're looking at doing, and they say, don't do it, because it's just created a headache for us here in the Ag District.
Did you bring up Fillmore County? Is that what you
I've
said?
talked to Fillmore County, and what they do is some of the townships are being more strict where they're not allowing 2 per quarter.
They actually have some in theirs that are and some
Yeah,
that aren't. 'Cause
so that is-
I researched Fillmore County.
Yeah,
as well.
it's scattered. Yep.
It's kind of by their region. They tried to keep their agricultural district at the one, and some of their hill bluff area where it was more residential setting. They allowed that. And, you know, is that something we need to look at, or we're dead set against that? Again, we have a process for doing that. Instead of sitting here debating all day long, go through the process.
Right. And I like the idea of a plan because, you know, so people know about it, but then also kind of going through it step by step to not push on one side or another. Because I think if you have a predisposed agenda of saying, well, this is what we're gonna do, let's see if we can do it, I think it's biased. And I think that, you know, we are in no position to take action on this at this time because we need all the process to take place, like we talked about, the public input, we need the planning commission to look at this, we need some options, and then start from the ground up and look at what's best. What's best for us, what's best for the residents of the county, and planning for the future.
Work through.
Greg, did you want to bring something else?
Yeah, I think that we should make a motion here. I'm gonna make a motion that we proceed on looking into this 2 per 40 and have some hearings and do it right and make sure that we're not gonna be overbuilding in places. There's a lot of gray area here that people aren't thinking about. I mean, you gotta have somebody that's gonna sell you the land first. And the townships have control of where they want houses built.
No, they don't. County does.
The township has more control than the county.
Townships don't do zoning, county does the zoning.
I know, but if you wanna go to court with the township, you'll lose. So, if you got a township that isn't in favor of this, and I was told that these townships were never informed of any of this stuff, they said that half of them, I went campaigning and all my townships didn't know nothing about it, and they're all in favor of 2 per 40. You were on the township association, and they all said 2 per 40, most of them, all but Houston, I think, was.
Is that correct, Bob?
Yeah, and
They were for it?
The other, yes, the majority was. The other thing that they pointed out was that most of them had not heard about the survey. They weren't informed. So why aren't they informed? And that's where you need to do stuff right, get your people informed.
Paul, you're on Mayville Township. Were you informed of when we did this comp plan about the?
Yeah, I actually received, I think, an email from, so I went through the rough draft on my computer.
You were one of the 200, thank you.
We can't make people open emails or open letters either is the problem, and getting that public input has been difficult.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the answer is,
But-
but I guess it's,
But all the townships were notified and asked to fill out a survey.
and we also use data that was done from like the 2019, when they initially started that process, and then COVID kind of put a damper on things. So all of that input that was provided at that point in time was also included. And I think they, I guess I wasn't involved with it at that point, but I thought that they intended or did go out and meet with every township at that time. You guys might know more if you were involved on
Yep,
townships.
they did.
So what years are we talking about? Was that 4 years ago? Possibly, because this is a 2023 plan.
Yeah.
Just, my point is not to understand exactly when it was done, but just that things change in people's lives, and if they're aware, they might want to give input or understand it more clearly.
And COVID changed a lot of things
Well,
with.
it was 2020,
The real
yeah.
estate market.
Yeah.
So I I do think that is something we'll need to take into account now too. Yeah.
Okay.
And again, before making a decision on this, I think we should be informed, and your townships are the one. Send them another letter, et cetera. I get the feeling that you just want to leave this the way it is, and then we continue getting all this headache, or do we want to fix it right? What direction are you?
Only because we just recently done the comp plan and went through all this not that long ago, and then,
Right. And here we are, is the
yeah,
problem.
why are we here? Why are we here having the?
Want it changed.
So just for a little history, because I was on the project management team for the comp plan, the county originally tried to update the comprehensive land use plan in-house. And that was pre-COVID, pretty close to right before COVID started. And the EDA department, which is the department that I worked in, actually received a lot of feedback from the public that, you know, there was a survey out, they didn't know it was coming, we needed to do a better job of getting the word out. It was clear that people cared about this, that they wanted to give feedback, that kind of thing. So eventually, the county decided that rather than doing it in-house, they were gonna hire an outside agency that was gonna help us do some of those things, like get the word out. And
Neutral party.
yes, we wanted a neutral party involved to kind of guide us through the process. And I would say, in my opinion, we did do our due diligence when we did hire TKDA. In addition to just having the survey go out, and there was a postcard that went out to every single household in Houston County that was very expensive. And the reason why we did that was to make sure that each household was touched and was informed that the survey was out there. And not everyone wants to take a survey, and we realize that. So another thing that we did was we did public engagement sessions up at the Houston County Fair, where we just pulled people aside. We made people talk to us. We gathered feedback in that way too. And TKDA, as our consultant, told the project management team, because we knew that there were strong feelings on both sides when it came to the quarter-quarter issue. We'd already received feedback, like the EDA office had received feedback on that, the zoning office had received feedback on it, and TKDA, as the third party, what they told us at the time was, unless there was an overwhelming majority that wanted it changed, their recommendation was to keep it the status quo. And that is why in the comp plan, you know, the comp plan reflects that. So I feel like there has been some due diligence and some research and some discussions on this already, in my opinion, as someone who participated in that process.
What year was that, Allison? 19?
22 and 23.
We just adopted the comp plan a year and a half ago.
I 100% see that. When you started the process, you're talking about getting this consulting.
Yeah, it took about a year that we worked
You
with.
said pre-COVID.
So initially, the county
Was gonna do it in-house.
was gonna do it in-house, and there was an initial survey that came out at the time, which we did receive some feedback from the public on. And we decided it was better to have help.
So that part was started pre-COVID.
That part was started pre-COVID. We
this is-
started over
So
kind
this has
of
been kind of an
after
issue going
COVID.
on since 2019.
No, it wasn't an issue. It was to renew the comp plan, because we hadn't renewed the comp plan for 20 years. And that's something we're supposed to do every 10 years. So this is why we were trying to tackle it, and we were gonna try to do it in-house at first. And then it wasn't working out, and then it got postponed during COVID. We couldn't meet. You know how that all went down. And so it just got put off and delayed. Then after restrictions were lifted, we went back to it and said, let's get this thing going again, and we were gonna hire a third party to look into it, a neutral party, to help us come up with our new comprehensive land use plan.
I'm gonna assume that if it's supposed to be done every 10 years and it wasn't done for 20, and we're 3 years into this now, that's probably why we're here today.
Why?
Because we.
It's
put it
only
off-
been a year and a
we put it
half.
off Too long. If you're supposed to do it every 20.
Well, right, but it was fine.
Then we only got 200 people that did the survey over a plan that had been in place for over 20 years.
Well-
That's why we're here today.
200 people is
But
nothing.
we did our due diligence in trying to get our
Right.
information to people, and we
But we're not
can't
getting the
demand people to bring in more comments.
But we're not getting the input, but we are today. So obviously, there's an issue going on.
Well, I think,
We did get a lot of verbal input up at the fair, and I will just say that the overwhelming theme you'll see in the comp plan, and the thing that we heard over and over and over again, I was one of the people that was up there listening to people's feedback. The number one thing that people said that they love about Houston County, which I believe would still be true today, is that they love our wide open spaces. So that is part of the reason for the decision. I mean, we heard over and over again from people that had just moved here, from people that had lived here their whole life. They love Houston County's wide open spaces. So, yeah, it's definitely something that if it were to change, we would need to do, again, due diligence on, because that's the overarching theme of the entire plan.
well, the comprehensive plan involves a lot more than this discussion and what we're talking about. So, yes, I believe it's an ongoing process and discussion. You know, we don't just do this and then we wait another 10 years and then we get feedback. There's lots of stuff that goes on in between, lots of changes. So I honestly, I can't support a motion that says this is what we're going to investigate with the 2 per quarter, because I don't know if that's the right number at this point. I think if
Is it
we
worth investigating?
have it less, well, I do think we need to constantly do research on some of these things. And by research, I mean input. I mean, you know, see what's going on and have a lot more than input than what we have at the board table. So if, you know, and a lot of people are gonna be more aware of this. Not everybody has access to this. Not everybody knows, you know, from their standpoint, what's going to change. Their lives change. We're all getting older and thinking about, you know, who's gonna move in next to us. So if, you know, I'm very supportive of the conversation, that it keeps going, and we start by figuring out what we're dealing with, you know, from the land use committee, looking into how many quarter areas could be involved, how many are under consideration. I am not opposed to talking to public and getting that input and making sure that we follow the process that we need to. But I also, on the other side, I don't want to rush into anything. Like I said in the beginning, if we make some knee-jerk decisions on, well, this is what we're going to aim for, so do we have support for that? I think that's the wrong way to do things. And I don't think that's, you know, we need to be aware that we're here on behalf of the residents of the county, and we're acting on their behalf and making some decisions.
Can I make a request or recommendation, I guess? In an effort to move things along, I'm not opposed to looking at things and, like you said, continuing this conversation, but with our staffing levels right now, and we have the solar moratorium that we need to settle here in the next 5 months now, I don't have the capacity to do anything with this rule at this point in time. And so maybe we can make a point to reconvene this in July or August. And in the meantime, you guys can do your research, talk to other counties and see what works for them or maybe what doesn't. And then we can come together with maybe a better plan. Because or I don't know if you guys have looked, but the comprehensive plan actually has they went through and did an implementation action plan in looking at all the goals and policies that were established. And with the staff that we've had, that isn't even anything that I've had a chance to review and look at where we need to prioritize in moving our documents forward. And like I said, it's not something that I can handle here until summer anyway.
So then you're gonna have a lot of business during the summer to do, so when are you gonna have time then? Cause summertime, there's gonna be permits all summer long.
Even now, it's permits all summer long. That is the one thing I don't have a deadline on, so it's the one thing that gets dropped, and I'm sure you'll hear from your constituents on that too. And I don't know what to tell you other than we need people, and we need to be able to retain people that we train in, and so that they can complete work, because we're just in a constant turnover. Or you look at, I mentioned this too to Eric, so I apologize if you don't like this idea, but we hired TKDA to do our comprehensive plan. Maybe we need to hire a consultant to do everything. But then you also run the risk of getting somebody's generic plan instead of having it done by people who actually have a vested interest in the future of the county. So, all stuff to weigh, and maybe we just need to take a few months to think about that.
You know,
To touch on a point that you said, to have a family member move back to take care of you, no disrespect, we all get older every day, why can't they just move back?
Good luck. You want your
It
son?
works for a lot of people around me, but I
Yeah,
Back
but
and
maybe
forth.
your son will get along with you.
don't have a son,
Well,
actually.
you have a daughter?
you know, I think
We're-
we're at a
we're-
point where we
Yeah,
have to.
yeah, there's,
say that
we have a motion on,
This is
the
the plan that we're going to do.
yeah, well, we have a motion on the floor, so, you wanna restate your motion, Greg, or?
Yeah, I wanna make a motion that we proceed on looking into this 2 for 40, doing it right and making sure we do dot our Ts, or cross our Ts and dot our Is and make sure we do it right. And I think that's the way we should start, because we had 200 people, and that was a year and a half ago. Now we probably got 400 people that got different ideas. So I think we need to have a couple more hearings, find out what people really want. It's changed since the last time, and it's gonna keep changing. We might be doing this again in another 2 years, who knows?
Well enough alone.
That's for you.
Okay, so
There's a motion.
we've got a motion on the floor. Everybody understands that motion. Is there a second to that motion? Is there a second to that motion?
Work group.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'm just doing this so we can get
Motion.
a time trial.
Motion dies for the lack of a second. Now, we'll continue our discussions. We'll try to gather information as time goes here. And go from there. Am I wrong in that?
I think it needs to, it can be an agenda item, yeah.
Yep.
I think
Yep.
it needs to get put on the work group. That way the whole board has a chance to look at the process to do it properly. So the motion that you made of moving forward on that, that we have to look at the whole thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's, moving forward is looking into the process.
Allison, can we have that put on the work group agenda? I would request that.
Well, we're gonna have the solar
Yes.
ordinance discussion in our work group session too, because that's something we gotta get that language into our
Yeah.
comp plan.
Might be a busy Tuesday.
Yeah, ongoing discussion on some items without taking action on them at this point.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else?
When you have these committees, are you gonna have, input from the outside of the board?
When we get to that part, Larry, we'll have public hearings if we get to that part.
If it goes that far.
If it goes that far, we'll have public hearings for the public for input, so.
How will you know?
Work group sessions are open to the public, but they don't take public comment during work group sessions.
That's correct.
And
But
we
they're
can't-
the second Tuesday of every month. So they are open to the public, but there's no comments at those since they don't actually make decisions.
We can't make an official action.
Right, there's no official action at a work group
Replace the
session.
date.
You come, but you can't talk.
Right.
We also have the land use committee that is giving report outs when they meet and what they discuss, or wherever, or if this is discussed in another committee, it's always public information.
Yep.
Well, I guess from my perspective, I would like to be part of one if you have outside information.
That'll be down the road, Larry, so when
Yep.
when that time comes, you'll be the opportunity to do that, so. I think we need to move on. You're free to give a comment at the end of the meeting here. So. Moving on to action number 3, consider adopting resolution 2507, authorizing Mark Olson, Houston County Emergency Management Director, to sign and execute the emergency performance grant agreement and thereby assume for and on behalf of the Houston County all of the contractual obligations contained therein.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
A lot less contentious items on my agenda. This is an annual ask to be able to act on behalf of Houston County for the Emergency Management Performance Grant. They're always a year or two behind, so this is actually for the 2023 grant. And it's for a matching amount of $18,581.
Okay.
All right. Any questions on this, or is there a motion to adopt the resolution 2507?
So moved.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion?
Any major changes?
No changes that I'm aware of.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right. Number 4, consider adopting resolution 2508, adopting Houston County 2024 hazard mitigation plan.
The hazard mitigation plan is a 5-year renewal process, which got delayed because of COVID, so nobody was renewing their hazard mitigation plans. I believe our last plan was dated 2015. It's close to a 2-year process or more. The kickoff for this update officially began in April of 2023, and I'm just coming to you now to adopt the updated plan. Copy of the PDF version of it was provided. In order to request any mitigation funds through FEMA or the state, every county and cities that want to request those funds need to have a updated hazard mitigation plan. Asking you guys to adopt it. I have sent out the same request to every city in the county to adopt that, and then that would finalize our plan for this cycle.
Okay.
Did you get a lot of feedback on that, Mark?
Some of them were, areas were, better than others. I think you just dealt with the same thing.
Need a motion for that?
Yes.
I'll make a motion. Accept it.
Second.
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign.
Thanks.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
Number 5, consider awarding bid for the Public Health and Community Service Interior Improvement Project. Brian and John and Jordan. You want to give us a brief history on this, John, to give it as to where
Sure.
we're here at?
Sure. So, in the midst of COVID, our Community Health Board, which is a combination of Fillmore County and Houston County, received grant dollars to address immunization and public health response. There are allowable uses for that, and so we've been sitting on that money for quite some time. Initially, it was really focused on immunization. Our immunization clinics had kind of wrapped up by the time we got the grants. And so we've come up with a plan to make some improvements to the Community Services Center to better accommodate public health operation and the potential for mass dispensing and things related to the pandemic or other types of public health emergencies. So we went through a process with Collaborative Design Group to do some design work. They came up with some estimates. We've had that in front of you a number of times. We went forward with bids, and today we're here to present bids. Brian's been very helpful in the process from a building use perspective. Obviously, he has a whole lot more experience with the building and bid process. So, Jordan, am I missing anything on that?
I don't think so.
Brian, you probably have more that you could offer from a building use perspective. So that's kind of a very brief, usually I'm not very brief, so.
Yeah, so this is a process, like John said, they've been working on it for a while. I've been involved for about 6-7 months. So it's remodeling the office space up front when you come in the reception area, the waiting area, a meeting room, an office, WIC room, the room to get their shots in, and having a second door added to go through and flow a little better during emergencies or during like pandemic type use. So we bid this out. We had 4 bidders. The low 3 bidders were all within a little over 10% of each other, so we had a competitive bid. The low bid was Weezer Brothers General Contractors, with a total bid of $198,500, and then there's an alternate to provide and install some additional crown molding and other work for another $9,500 for that. So the recommendation today would be to approve both the base bid with the alternate, and then get started on the work. The ultimate goal is this is federal funding that needs to be spent by the end of June. So the proposal is to have the work substantially complete by June 13th and 100% complete by, that's punch list items and everything, by June 30th. So
This is funded by a grant, Brian?
This is
funded by ARPA funds.
ARPA money that the county received.
Right, okay.
Not really ARPA.
Isn't it ARPA?
No, it's,
Thought it was.
yeah, no, it's specifically COVID
From the
immunization.
state
No,
or federal?
I believe it has a federal source.
Okay.
So it's in essential grant funding.
Essential grant funding?
It's kind of like grant funding.
Essentially, yes.
Yes, thank you. That's what I was asking.
It's 100%.
It's not something we put in our budget and it's
Correct.
coming out of taxpayer money.
There isn't any local levy in this project.
And my second question is, I've been in that building. Does that include the fixing of the cracks all around the ceiling?
That's the crown molding issue. One of the things, we had to focus our project on specific things to be eligible for the grant, so we couldn't redo the whole building. Our focus is on the public areas where public interact in our clinical space, our waiting space, entry, reception, those types of things, and then an additional exit to accommodate flow in times of mass dispensing and the like. So it won't address all of those cracks that you mentioned, but in the area that is public, that public uses, those things will be addressed with the alternate that was described.
One of the things with those cracks, so that building was built with that roof to being in big open space. Now there's been office walls, so the roof of that building is always gonna move separate from the walls within the building. So it's gonna lift and come down
I just
depending
noticed it
on
the
the
last time I
snow.
was in there and I'm like, ooh.
Yeah, so it's gonna keep moving up and down depending on the time of the year, so that's not gonna change. So this crown molding, what it does is it hides the cracks essentially. It doesn't stop it from moving. The cracks are gonna be there, they're gonna expand and contract, but you just won't see that as much when visually, you wanna have a crack hidden, not have a crack be visible. So that's what a lot of this is, trying to make it more aesthetically where you don't notice it, even though that stuff is still moving.
They need a motion to accept that bid. Is that right?
Correct.
I'll make a motion to accept that bid as stated.
Lowest bid of Weezer Construction.
Second.
To it too.
Okay, motion's been made and it was seconded. Any further discussion? So I misunderstood this whole thing because I always thought it was ARPA money that was granted to the community health. So this money, if we didn't spend it, then Fillmore County was gonna get it to spend.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
So this money, we have this money?
Yes.
Or we don't?
We have it.
We have it, okay. So it's already been granted out, we have the money.
We ran it through with the CHB meeting, went through reports, we have 220,000 in one of the funds and 100.
Yeah, I remember, that's the way I understood it,
Yep.
yep, okay. So
What you briefed.
there's no risk of this grant not coming through because we already have the money.
Not on hold from the federal government. Thank you.
That's good.
Is that the way you understand it, Carol?
We don't actually have the money in our bank.
Yeah, oh,
Right,
well, but it's been granted.
But it's been,
okay. And Jordan, you want to expand on one of the improvement areas of, to help with your dental program?
Yeah, so the construction plans are gonna improve both of our clinic spaces. Our WIC space is gonna become larger and so is our immunization space. We're gonna upgrade the flooring and countertops to meet the clinical grade materials. And then the clinic space that we currently are using for dental space is gonna become larger, which will be able to fit the dental chair and then the people who are coming to see the dentist too. So it's just gonna make, space better for all services that we offer at the public health building. So we're also, increasing security access points throughout, the building too. So we're eliminating access to the back half where staff sit, so.
Good.
Okay.
That's kind of a compliance issue
Yeah.
too.
And then giving
Safety.
our front entry, right now it's kind of divided into 2 waiting spaces. We're gonna create 1 waiting space so that our front desk has clear sight to waiting space and who's in the entryway, so.
Nice. You haven't had any remodeling in that area before, right? This is the first time since you've been in there?
I haven't been here, and nor has Jordan since public health moved out there. Since I've been here, we haven't done any
Okay,
modeling, which is, I don't know, about 8.5 years.
okay.
Well, when we bought the building, we remodeled that whole building.
Correct.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it used to be a furniture store, as I understand it.
Oh, yeah.
So that's some of the roof and ceiling stuff is, it was, as Brian said, it was built to be a big open space. You put walls in there. It's, as I understand it, it's not a structural issue, but it's hard to make those seams stay put.
Okay.
And I will just say, John and I have been in contact with MDH, who oversees this grant too, and have kept them informed every step of the way of our plans too, so, and have their approvals for this as well.
All right, if there's no further discussion, we've had a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, thank you. All right, moving on to number 6, consider accepting the MDVA grant for Houston County Veteran Services Office for 2025 in the amount of $10,000. I don't think Rob's here.
I'll make a motion to accept the grant.
Okay,
I'll second that.
any further discussion?
Too bad they don't increase it.
Yeah, it would be nice.
Exactly.
$10,000 to serve our veterans.
Well, they get more than that. I mean, it's federal from,
Recipients get more, but the county, in order to provide those,
It's,
yeah.
getting those benefits for people.
it's very slim.
For all the police chiefs on board.
100%.
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Number 7, consider request to seek termination of Central Pro Suite contract. Central Square Pro Suite contract and seek return of amount paid to date. Brian?
Yes, good morning, Commissioners. So we had some difficulty with progression with Central Square, a contract we signed back in 2022. So we're at a point that we just need to cancel the contract. We're looking for approval to seek cancellation and also talking to them about getting refund of our money that we already put down.
It's not working out.
No. A lot of issues. I really don't want to get into too much at all because there might be some litigation.
The city of Caledonia's into this for 18,000.
Oh.
Yeah, I talked to all the cities, and the chiefs confirmed with their city, and they're good with this also, since they all have a portion in it.
According to Andy, there's quite a bit of, any of the clients of this particular application have had some difficulties with it.
Yes,
So
to say the least.
it's not just in this town, city.
That is so politically correct. Difficulties.
So what happens when you move forward with this? You just approach them about the contract and seek termination for that?
Yes, I've talked to County Attorney Bublitz, and she's looking at writing up a letter for termination and the request for the refund of the money.
Who is that, a contract?
I'm sorry?
Is this a contract that you had?
Yes, it was signed in August of '22.
And the county attorney's on board with seeking to break the contract?
I believe so. I sent her a copy of the contract last week, and I don't know how much she read it over. It's a thick contract.
You know, in case of liability reasons.
Right, I mean, because if we do this, we're probably gonna have pushback, so is the county attorney aware? I'm sure, I mean, she's ready to defend our position on terminating this?
As far as I know, I mean, I haven't asked her directly at all. That's why I sent her the contract to have her read it over. That's why I'm just looking for permission to seek.
So you just want permission to seek, and you're not saying we're gonna do it, is that what I get?
Terminate.
Right, we're looking for permission to terminate.
The seek termination of Central Square and the.
What's your alternative then, Brian?
Right now,
Sorry, Sheriff Swedberg.
the program that we use is called LATG.
Yeah.
And previously, we were told before '22 that LATG was gonna be phased out. So that's where we look for other products. After signing the contract, we were told later on that LATG would be, still be sustained. So we're gonna still keep using
Okay.
the same product for the time being.
So you're not without anything, you,
Correct.
okay.
So do we have a motion to consider request to seek termination?
We can't get sued by terminating, can we?
There's well, that's what Attorney Boob is looking over also, but there is some all clauses in there, cancellations.
Will this come back to us then for a vote to terminate then? Is that what your intention is?
That's what he's asking.
Yes, I believe that once the Attorney Bublitz and Central Square communicate, will come back to the board again.
Did you have a motion?
No?
I would make a motion to move ahead with the termination of the contract and finding out those steps.
Your motion is to terminate, not just to seek to see if we're gonna do it.
Seek
Let's terminate it. So why do we need to do it twice?
No, I'm asking to just move to terminate.
Terminate.
Go
I
through those
second
steps
that.
to terminate it.
I
'Cause
second termination.
It's gonna have to have legal review and all of that too.
Okay, we have a motion to terminate in a second. Any further discussion? I'm a little nervous of doing this without without the county attorney's consent and a review of this.
Well, let me amend my emotion, my emotion, that she, upon review by our legal advisor, that we terminate this.
That would be better. Is that okay with your?
I am seconding that again.
Thank you.
Okay, we understand that motion now? Any other further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Brian.
Good luck with it.
Yeah.
Number 8, accept the resignation / retirement of Mary Betts, Houston County Recorder, effective the end of the day, April 1st, 2025, with thanks for her 23 years of service to the residents of Houston County. Carol?
Yes, Mary submitted her resignation, or retirement. This is before the end of her elected term, so we'll be reviewing what options we have available to us for filling that position. Oh, I don't need that. So I guess I'd just, right now, like you to accept her resignation, retirement, and wish her well.
Okay.
What happens if we don't want her to leave?
Yeah.
Well, then you don't accept it, then I guess.
Don't let
Then
her.
you don't accept it, but I'm pretty sure she won't be here April 2nd. Yeah.
Okay.
So, her term ends in the 26th, right?
Yes.
I believe. Yep.
Well, it's on the ballot at the same time that you were up.
Right. I thought we both ran at the same
Right.
election cycle, so
So we need an interim?
possibly, yep, that's something
We'll
that'll,
have discussions
yep.
about how we're gonna move forward.
We have a little time here until April here, so decide what to do from there, so.
I'll make a motion to accept her resignation for retirement.
Second.
And thanking her for her 23 years of
Absolutely.
dedicated service.
Definitely thank her for,
Wonderful person.
Thank her for 23 years.
any other discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Number 9, consider reviewing and approving payments. Everybody's had a chance to look at the payments on the packet. Any questions on those?
Make a motion to approve it.
Second.
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Moving on to discussion items, administrator updates. Carol,
Yeah, are you able to stay for a little personnel committee after the meeting?
Short one.
Short, yeah. It will be short to just discuss a few of the things that we're, looking at. HR officer, I sent you an email, but now I don't remember exactly what was on it. Aside from that, there's just lots going on. It's a busy time of year, ending the year, starting the year, tax calculations, different things going on, so
so you've conducted interviews for HR?
we'll schedule them.
Oh, okay.
Oh, of course, we'll have to discuss negotiations.
Anything else?
Yeah, that's,
Board updates. We got a extension meeting Thursday night, Greg, up at community building there. Other than that, I don't have a whole lot to bring. Cindy, what do you have?
Let's see. Well, this week I have a Board of Health meeting, SHAC, as it's known as. I'm trying to get all the acronyms down on this on Thursday. And so there seems to be, or last week, we also had our collaborative Board of Health meeting, some good discussion. I think it's very valuable for us to work with Fillmore County and any other counties, figuring out, what's ahead, considering some changes with government funding. And let's see, that's probably the only report that I have today.
Okay. Commissioner Schultz.
Oh, pretty much the same meeting that you guys were at for Board of Health, so that was good information. A lot of stuff that we talked about here, I got phone calls on, so that was busy both ways. And upcoming, we got quite a bit of stuff with the union negotiations and personnel, so we'll be busy there.
Yep, be busy. Commissioner Myrie.
I got nothing.
Commissioner Zender.
Next Monday is the, it's on my calendar, meeting in Rochester for radio.
Radio, yep.
And it's a combination of radio and safety, I believe. So it's a 9 to 3. I've communicated with some of the Mower County commissioners that I've known for 80 years.
Mm-hmm.
So they will be there. I'll go figure that a retired cop is on the safety committee, radio committee. So looking forward to going over there and seeing what that's all about with AMC. And so
Okay.
that's it.
All right. You just reminded me, for the safety committee that, I don't know, the law enforcement safety committee, I know the jail committee, we kind of retained that, or how was this?
we're kind of confused about how it actually all works.
I think we need to get that figured out so then we can set a schedule for you guys to meet quarterly with the sheriff's office and.
Do you want to put them together for safety and jail? Because Bob and I are on the jail committee. If you want to do, 4 times a year, quarterly.
Yep.
And make it 1 instead of 2. It would just simplify things.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if you want to do 2 times a year. I think that would be better. If you want to do 4 times a year, quarterly. And make it 1 instead of 2. It would just simplify things.
1 instead of 2. Yep.
Cause you did simplify with the CJCC and the whatever else. You put those two together.
Can we just add that to the work group? I had a few questions on the work group, or different people did on some of the categorizing of that too, that maybe we could clean up some language in the, in that whole,
That would be
that whole
great.
thing.
Yeah.
Some updating.
Yeah, we could do that.
More efficiency.
Yep.
Yeah, committee list discussion. Bring that back.
I'm glad you brought up, Bob, about, our joint board of health. You and I and Cindy were there, and so there's been it's our turn as the county, Houston County, to run the meetings, so to speak, so, and there's a lot of discussion on the cannabis stuff again, as usual, which gets pretty colorful at times. So, but it was a good discussion, and we talked about what all the counties are doing, and I enjoy that we work with Fillmore County on that. We can get both sides of what they're doing and what we're doing, and we're working together, and I think it's a good working relationship, so. So if there's nothing else, we have a closing public comment. Is there anybody else who would like to?
I have one further brief comment to make on the quarter rule. In light of the
State your name
discussion-
again, please.
What's that, Eric?
State your name again.
Shane Schumacher.
Shane Schumacher.
In light of the discussion, they talked about people that were interviewed really like the open spaces of Houston County. It was brought up about tax revenue. It almost sounds like the same discussion we had 10 years ago with frac sand, and we never did that either. That's all I gotta say.
Anybody else? All right. We have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Thank you, everybody.